Welcome back. Is cannabis harmful? A study out today says teenagers who use it are much more likely to have drug and alcohol problems in later life.
So, are the government right to be relaxing the law? Should we have a policy of zero tolerance? Or should we accept that cannabis is now such a normal part of so many people's lives that politicians ought to grasp the nettle and legalise it?
That's what Rosie Boycott was campaigning for 5 years ago.
They hoped March the 28th, 1998 would be an historic day for cannabis. Smoking dope and scenting victory, thousands marched in support of a campaign calling for the legalisation of the drug. It was a march organised by a national newspaper, Rosie Boycott's Independent on Sunday.
If the police arrest us, they've got to arrest 30,000 other people who are here, or however many it is, don't they? And they can't do that.
Calms you down, it relieves stress. And if you have massive problems, it helps you out when your body's all aching.
It's the safest drug there is out there. Don't damage it in any way.
Nearly 5 years on, the marchers can claim a partial victory, a compromise. The Home Secretary is reclassifying cannabis as a less dangerous drug, downgrading it from Class C to Class B. But it's a confusing picture for the police and cannabis users alike. Possession of small amounts for personal use will no longer be considered an arrestable offence, unless the police decide it is, when it's being smoked near children, for example. The marchers wanted the supply network taken out of criminal hands. But it remains in criminal hands, and the government is raising the sentence for dealing in cannabis from 5 to 14 years. Inspired by the cannabis cafes of Amsterdam and encouraged by the softening attitude to marijuana here, Jimmy Ward opened Ganja Land in Bournemouth, a cafe where cannabis could be smoked but not bought. But some of his first visitors were the police, and they kept coming back for more. This week Jimmy Ward was back in court. He pleaded guilty to allowing the cafe to be used for the taking of a controlled drug. Tonight he could be in prison. Instead, he was given a 9-month suspended sentence, so he's with us instead.
I think we've done good.
Any regret?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I think we've showed people the way it can go, and hopefully, you know, a few more people will get up and have a go. And as you can see, you don't go to jail for it.
The marchers of '98 have a long way to go. The current compromise is unpopular with cannabis users who still face potential arrest, and it's unpopular with many police chiefs. Enforcement policy varies from force to force and from district to district. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary insists the full decriminalisation of cannabis is out of the question in his political lifetime. It's an argument that just won't go away, and neither will Rosie Boycott. She's still with us. And so, as you heard there, is Jimmy Ward from the Cannabis Cafe in Bournemouth, and Brian Horncey, who's campaigned for cannabis to be available for medical reasons, and in Westminster. And Widdecombe won't go away either. We'll talk to you in a second, Anne Widdecombe, but Rosie Boycott, pride of place to you on this one, because 5 years ago you led this big nationwide campaign, and did you expect in 5 years' time to have made the progress that you have made?
No, not at all. I mean, when we first began it, I can remember people in Downing Street saying, all you lot at the Independent on a Sunday are a bunch of middle-class hippies who haven't forgotten the 60s and don't know how to grow up, and no way in the life of this government will there be any change in the law. But the interesting thing that happened out of that campaign was an enormous amount of different people from different sectors of society, from people who wanted cannabis for medical use, through to a lot of members of the police, a lot of people who ran prisons, a lot of school teachers. A very surprising cross-section came in and supported it and started to talk. And I mean, I was really taken aback by, say for instance, the numbers of policemen who actually adopted a much more radical approach to drugs than I did, which, I mean, I was only talking about cannabis because, I mean, my feeling is, I could go on about this for a long time, but I'll try and put it in a nutshell. A, I do not believe it's a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug because the same dealer who sells you the cannabis wants to give you the heroin.
So if you could buy it at the local licence, you wouldn't have that problem.
It makes a mockery of any sort of education about drugs for kids, because they smoke a drug